Hey Logan, how are you doing? What's going on everyone? Alex here, getting ready to do how to make the first person games in Gdevelop. Give me just a moment here as I get set up and we transition over into um thank you. Yeah, I am we will be releasing this week. I'm proud to announce that I'll be working on the live stream version of how to make Doom. Or a Doom-like game, and I'm really excited to share that. One of my biggest passions and dreams has been to make a game like this, and recently in Gdevelop, we've seen some awesome changes to let it happen, and I cannot wait to share this with you guys. Give me a couple of minutes as we get booted up here, waiting for a few more folks to join, and we'll get rolling. Hey, Funk, what's going on? All right, this is going to be exciting. I'm so stoked for this. So, here's what's going to happen. What's going on, Riley? Good morning, good morning. Or good evening for you. Good afternoon. Whenever and wherever you are, my friends, let's get started. I'm so stoked. All right, so I'm going to start by showing you what I currently have before we dive into anything else, and kind of show you what I'm planning on building and how to go from this step. So let's transition over to our main scene, which let me turn off the grid before I show you this because it looks super blurry. All right. Yo, what's going on, Bo? Super excited to have you guys here. This is awesome. Today is a big step in what we're doing. Um, did that transfer over? Did you guys see the new scene? I'm using new software, so I'm not sure if it transferred the way it was supposed to or not. Okay, perfect. So here's what we have. Let's get started, and I'll be covering how we'll be doing this, of course, which is we'll be giving you the that not only the lighting, the shading, the lights, how to do the animations, and all of it. It's going to be exciting. So one of the things that I plan on doing is in the Doom series is walking you step by step like I do in my other devlog live streams. We'll be doing all of that live while also rendering both Doom 2D and 3D. And rather than I'll probably use some of the Doom sprites or the entirety of Doom so that we can do a true faithful recreation in Gdevelop. But with all of that, of course, this somebody else owns the contents to all of that, and we need to make sure that we respect that. So these are all sprites I made myself in a couple of minutes. We can see that we have some shadows going on here, a few layers of shadows, actually. We have objects that billboard and face us, and there's so much more that we can do here. Between 2D and 3D objects, there are new mesh options. Let me go into full screen here. Whoops, that's the wrong button. Come on, Alex. There we go, into full screen. And let's take a peek here. So I break the boundaries here. This isn't a collision or anything. I just want to show you guys the lighting and some cool effects that I'm working on. Right now, the sword isn't is nothing more than just a simple sprite rotated on a 3D plane. But I thought this would be great. Show you some transitions. We have some seam issues with 3D because in 3D there's edge highlighting. I'm working on finding a way to resolve that without raising the layer. I'm working on a couple of things that I think will work there. We've got grass that faces us. We can even do Minecraft grass, which is the cross method. We're going to be using tons of different techniques in this development series, but this is what I want to help you guys with. So what I'm going to do is real quick, I'm going to package up all these resources and get them uploaded to our Discord server. So if you're not on Discord right now, this is real 3D. Yep, this is true 3D. We're not using ray tracing or ray casting or anything like that to make this happen. This is true 3D inside of Gdevelop. Now, you may also be wondering, well, with Gdevelop not having an actual camera system to allow us to see in 3D, how do we see in 3D? How do you make this in 3D to make it simple? Well, check this out. Very easily, we can navigate our game from the standard first person. And if I was to remove the sword while I did this, I can float in my game scene. And although it's not a perfect solution for a 3D camera, at least in editing, this does help. This majorly helps us while developing in Gdevelop to be able to fly around and see those texture errors and get those things fixed up for that final polish. There's layering going on here, but I'm pretty proud about this little fire animation that I made yesterday. I think it looks good, and we need to get a torch there, but I think that these basic features are the backbone of this style of game. And so in more of a traditional, although we're getting the same effect as we would, say, in 2D, if we were to do a ray casting system, which is the traditional method of how they built Wolfenstein and Doom. I personally feel that this is the most logical way to approach it, but for those that are dedicated to the traditional way, I plan on building those systems and working on a template to show you classic Doom. But Doom 2D, 3D, we're going to be working inside of this engine and get those models and show you the difference between how to use a GBL model and how to use 2D art to do the same thing. So it'll be one template, but you'll see the different methods inside of it, if that makes sense. Personally, I'm working on my own game. This is the sprite set that I've begun working on. This is called Into the Deep. It's a game where it's has the Doom-like elements, but it's fantasy-based. Maybe taking some inspiration from Hexen and games like that, but going more into that classic dungeon feel where like Daggerfell and games like that, traditional PC games where you press forward and you move forward one square, press left, you look left, move forward, and taking those old RPGs and modernizing them with that 3D camera movement, and then adding in some really cool features. So what do you guys think? Does that sound exciting? I want to get us started on this, and I think the best way to get you guys started is to give you my assets as well. So although these won't be probably in the final product, I want to give you guys these assets because you can follow along today in real time. So I already have them exported. I'm gonna zip them up, and I'm gonna paste them inside of Gdevelop, and I'm gonna teach you today how to do this so quickly, it's gonna blow your mind. I can do this is done in 3 lines of code. The first person camera. Now there's a little bit more to it, but 3 lines of code. Maybe 4. I can't, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And this is in Gdevelop right now. And this isn't me showing you the extra features yet. That's when we get into enemies and everything else. So I'm gonna shut up. We're gonna get right into it. Today's gonna be a longer stream, and then I'm gonna be making short-term content. Yeah, let's go. All right, so if you guys aren't part of it already, and also if you guys can help me in the Discord or in chat today, because I want to really focus on this stuff, and I get super distracted with chat, and I'm trying to do better about that. I will. Yeah, let me. Shut up, Alex. Go do the job that you said. All right, let's do this. Do you guys want the sword as well? It's not really. Yeah, we'll do the sword too. You guys can have the sword too. I don't care. Let's do this. Let's make. Yeah, exactly. Into the Deep is going to be my dungeon crawler, and I'm excited to show you hanging vines that sway with like grass, chains that you can cut that are 2D that'll drop in 3D, objects like physics objects. There's some really cool extensions that are worked on in the community right now, including this amazing lighting system. So anyways, I'm gonna shut up. Shut up, Alex. All right, let's do this. In chat today, what I was gonna say, sorry, got distracted. If you guys can help me moderate, answer each other's questions if you know what's going on, or help direct whatever is happening. If you guys know the answer, please do help other people out. I do have tons of video content out there that teaches all of these basics. So, although I will be creating that series, so you guys can go back and watch what you missed, all the important stuff. And then also point everybody to Discord if you can. You want these downloads, I'll include them for after the stream. I'll add them to the title, but if you want them now in real time, you have to be a part of Discord. Make sure you verify yourself, and I'm going to be making a post in just a moment in the download section. You don't see it right now, but it will be there in just a moment. Give me a second here. You'll watch me do it in real time. All right, so the first thing that I want to do here is to grab my. I'm talking to myself. It helps me narrate out loud, but also get you guys what you need. So and also I got some exciting things. There are more sprites than what you see on the screen inside of this dungeon pack. It's all named for you. I don't include the source file because there are secrets in that I'm not ready to give to you. But you have all of the sprites you need right now. And actually, I think to make it even easier for you, I'm going to include the extensions that you're going to need. And you won't even and I'll show you how to do that, how you can install them. So what I'm going to do is include the few that we need to add to make this happen. I could export all of these extensions and then you could just upload them, but most of the ones that we're going to be using are included already in Gdevelop, and some of them will not work unless you're on the newest version of Gdevelop. Now, for those of you that are interested in the newest version of Gdevelop, I do not mean what's available through the updater. You do have to go to GitHub to download this version because it's the pre-release. And so I'll show you what version I'm on so you can check yourself. And by the time you watch this video, if you're coming in the future, then the version is 5.3.196 dot the hash some number, but this is the important part. And if you don't have that, it will not be available most likely right now in the update. Go ahead and go to the GitHub and do that. But that will be a later part, and probably, I don't know that we're going to get to Sprite 3Ds today, just because it is, but that's the only one that you wouldn't have access to until you update. So, okay. Let me include, though, the... Do I want to add the extension then, actually? Because it may not be useful to you. I will... Yeah, okay. No, I know what to do. I know what to do. I got you. All right. We're going to add... You guys can't see it. Here, I'll move it over so you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to move that out of here. I also made some gross stuff. There's a knife sticking out of flesh on the wall to add some like dungeony, gross dungeon effects. There's some other cool stuff in here, more grass. I'm going to close that. And I'm going to create a extensions folder in here. And we're going to add a sprite, some organization in here. So we're going to have tile set, and then SFX, or FX, we'll say GFX, and that'll, there's a better name for this. Think particles. Particles. We're going to add our fire effect to the particles. And then everything else is a tile set, except for the sword, which we're going to do, we'll just do weapons. Oh, weapons. And we're going to put that sword in there. Now, inside of the extensions, we need a few extensions that I'm going to include. You need the point light extension. You need the shadows extension, the spotlights extension, and for now, that'll be fine. For those that are interested in doing high quality models, hey, thanks, Logan. I appreciate you stopping in. If you need the high mesh models and things like that, there is an extension for that, and I'll add the mesh materials, which allows you to add mesh materials to 3D objects to give them all sorts of cool lighting, 3D texture, and this is how we get those more high quality popping textures, the ones that have like bitmap textures and weights and stuff. And that's not including, and I'll also include the axis helper tool. Now this tool we can use to create a 3D axis grid markers in Gdevelop using programming, so we can see where the axes are, and it helps us in our brain to program better, making sure that we select the right axes. So I'm going to include all of those, and now that we have everything, I'm going to bundle this up, and we're going to get it shipped over to you. So we're going to rename this to Dungeon Crawler Sprites. Or dungeon, let me think here. Project. I'm not sure what to call this. I don't want to give you the name of my game because I don't want you guys to, develop underneath that title, particularly, preferably. Project. We're going to do project. We're going to call it Project Crawler for now. Or Dunge Crawler? Project Dungeon. Project Dungeon is fine. Let's go ahead and not fuss about this. Compress it into a zip file. There I have it. It's going into Discord in just a moment. Prepare yourselves. Let's see here. We're going to add, I will say you must verify yourself and able to get these files, because I'm going to put them under the Cyber Cafe. There's going to be a new tab called Media, or it's for downloads. And this is for me to upload and do all of this. I do not, it will be a create the channel, and I need to add access to everyone, so give me a moment. Permissions. We're going to add the Level Up Society to get you guys access here. Woo! And you guys will be able to not create posts or send messages. These are simply to allow you to react and access that part. So there we go, it's set. And now I will drop the new post, which is Project Dungeon Crawler. Almost done. Let's upload a thumbnail. We'll use it from the live stream for now. And I need to upload the media. And we're good to go. Project Dungeon. These assets are free to use with credit. Or personal. I'll add real licensing to it later. All right, and the post is live. There you are. So I'll wait for you all to go ahead and download that if you'd like. It's available. And now we're going to do it together step by step. So while you're downloading that, I'm going to create a new project. And yeah, so let's do Project Dungeon. Thanks for the love. I super appreciate it. I just realized as well, I'm going to pop that back on too. Special thanks, actually. I wanted to shout this out. We had a new supporter today on our Ko-Fi, our Ko-Fi account. If you're able to and you like what I'm doing and appreciate the free art and whatnot, go ahead and click down in the link. There's a link to my Ko-Fi account. A small subscription or a one-time really helps out the channel, allows me to continue to do educational videos and content and release free stuff. Speaking of, today in the afternoon, expect access to the first premium pack that I've released, and it will be available to everyone for free because of our amazing Ko-Fi supporters. And on top of that, you'll get to see me begin the second part of that journey because we're making that Super Toast World asset. So Super Toast, the Grasslands template will be out today, later on. So if you're watching this video later, or if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can check out the YouTube. And if you do know what I'm talking about, then yeah, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to see what you guys do with it. And I'm really excited because in my template that I'll be releasing to Gdevelop that includes some of the assets, it doesn't include all of them. And I think it's gonna be really cool and I don't use them in the template, but they are available. So it'd be really cool to see what you guys do with it. I've created sprites to emulate Mario, to emulate Kirby and Pikmin. So we have quite a few options for you to create some really unique game design elements based on those classic games. So you can check out my itch.io. My username is the same on everything: Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, itch, Gdevelop. That's all the important stuff. All right. Anyways, shut up, Alex. So we're going to do the 1280 by 720, just because we are doing pixel art. We're going to optimize for pixel art, and I'm going to create this in the cloud. You can name it whatever you want. Maybe the name of your game, project first person, and we're going to create the project. So we now have a blank project together. Let me know if those that are following along, if you need any extra time. Otherwise, we're simply just going to get right into it. Or if you're struggling with any of the downloadable content, let me know. Let me know. Yeah, perfect. Hey, Clayton, what's going on, man? I'm glad that you're able to join us. Are you gonna be programming with us today, or? If you because you missed it, in Discord I just released a new content pack, so you can be okay. Yeah, so we're developing the first person stuff today, and you missed the intro, but that's totally good. You can watch that and catch up later. But if you're just interested in being able to listen while you're doing your stuff, then this is perfect. So in that downloads, there's all the extensions you guys need, as well as I'll be helping you add everything. So let's get started. Thank you guys so much for joining me on the canvas today. What we're going to do to get started in our first person journey is, once you have the sprites downloaded, if you're watching this later, it'll be available in the description below. Otherwise, it's available now on Discord. And if for those that are watching, if you can let everybody know that if they ask about the sprites or anything, let them know that it's in Discord and how to do that. All right, so here we go. So the very first thing that we're going to do is preparation. We need to add all of the extensions that we're going to be using to make this happen. How do we do that? Well, the first thing we're going to do is go to our project settings and our extensions. Beautiful. I want to start with some 3D extensions that we know we're going to need. We're going to need the 3D jump. Go ahead and install that. We're going to add the 3D walk, the 3D raycast. This allows us to not only shoot a line in 3D, but once we touch another object, this is how we can target objects in first-person view. This allows us to not only make AI that moves and rotates around the screen just like a normal AI unit, but on a 2D plane, but also we can find 3D objects under the pointer. And that's a big deal, because then we can target at the pointer. And this is how we would move if you wanted to make a true camera system that flew around and did all sorts of stuff. You could use 3D raycasting for all sorts of stuff. But this is bullet placement, all of this. This is a very important aspect to making a Doom-like game. So for those that are interested in swinging weapons and doing attacks like this, this is how you would do that. Let's install that to our project. We also need the mouse pointer lock extension. What this does is it locks the behavior of your mouse to hide it in the center of the screen, but it gives us a place where our camera can follow and track. Now, this might be different if you plan on building a mobile game, and so we're going to be building this project with mobile first. I won't be adding the mobile controller right away, but I will be adding the base functionality with deciding whether or not it is a mobile project. This means that you'll be able to add those functions yourself if you want to, or wait for the video series to progress to be able to do that. So anyways, let's add the mouse pointer lock. Perfect. And from there, I want to say that that is the entirety of all we need to actually make that first-person camera. Now, because I have included the downloads in the download section and or in Discord, what you can do from here is click the import extension, go to the file that you downloaded into the project dungeon folder and into the extensions. One at a time, let's add them. Let's start with shadows, because that's arguably the most important. Import the other extension. Let's do point lights and spotlights. Other than that, we're not going to add any of the other ones for now, because even though I included them, they're for more advanced features. And I encourage you to play around with them, but if you're following the series, stay with me to make sure that you don't get lost along the way. All right, so now we have the basic functions. I'm going to go ahead and pop open, oops, let me move this over. I'm going to go ahead and pop open Gdevelop on my other screen as well. And we're going to just pull some code references. That way I don't have to remember on the fly. This is YouTube magic, everyone. This is how we do it. All right. You ever wonder how they always seem to know exactly what they're doing? It's because they have their project open on the other page, and they're looking at it. All right, let's go to our build menu and open up into the deep. All right. Make sure my chat is open. It's okay, Riley. Even if you added them all already, not a big deal. Not at all. And the reason is because we will be using them later, but some of them are much more advanced. It doesn't take up any logic space or anything in your game, really, so it doesn't hurt to have them. All right, so now I want us to do the last bit of preparation. The last bit of preparation is going into our global variables, and we're going to simplify this down into the most basic explanation. Now, we can add controllers, we can add mobile support, we can add desktop support, and we're going to be focusing first on desktop because that's the environment we're developing in. So we're going to add a variable, we're going to make it a structure, and I like to name this, to make it as simple as possible for this, we're going to name it controls. And in our controls, we're going to add a few children. We need 5 children at the start. The first child is going to be called forward. We need left. We need right. We need backwards. And we need jump. If you don't want to have jumping in your game, you don't need to add this here. I want jumping in my game, because for me it's a modern feature, but it allows me to build 3D puzzles and some other really cool things. So I want jump in mine. We already added the 3D jump script, but that's important for our game, even if we're not really using a jump system. It allows us to add gravity and falling effects, which are necessary for physics items and other sort of things. So for our player, we're going to use the jump 3D script, but you don't need to have the jump controls. Now, because we're working on desktop, what we need to do is go to forward and type W. Backwards is going to be S. Now, you can remap these controls at any point if you want to. There's a cool remapping extension that you can use to do this inside of your script really quickly, but we're going to use WASD. So jump, though, needs to be space with a capital S, because this is the way that Gdevelop reads the advanced keys. If you're using a controller and want to do forwards or backwards, say it's a joystick, or not a joystick, for some reason you're going to be using A, B, Y, X to move around, if you're crazy, you can use A with a capital letter for the controller. But for now, anyways, backwards will be S, left is A, right is D. So it should look like this, controls forward, backwards with the basic input. Click apply. And now we're getting into the meat of what we're doing. Just because I absolutely hate that this is called Untitled Scene, we're going to click on it, press F2, or you can go on rename if you want, F2, and we're going to call this Game Scene, because it drives me absolutely crazy when it's not called that. We're going to double click game scene and reopen it. And that way we are good to go. If at any point, for those that may be watching this and you're brand new to Gdevelop, when you're working in Gdevelop, often you may accidentally close your project and still have it open. And like if you went to home and manage, because I'm already currently inside of this build, I can't delete it. So a guaranteed way to close yourself out of the build is go to File, Close Project, or press Control W. But if we go to Manage, we can see that we're currently editing it. Maybe you want to get back into your project. You just have to go to your project manager if it is open and just double click on whatever scene you'd like to jump back into. So hopefully that's useful for those that don't know that. And maybe if you are an advanced user, you may have not known that yourself. It took me a while to figure that out. Okay, so the very next step, now that we've done the base rudimentary stuff, we get into the fun stuff. Before any coding is done, I want to add a couple of textures to our game, just so we can see what's happening right away. We're going to go into our scene objects, go to add a new object, and I want to start with a 3D box. This is going to be our dungeon floor. So name it dungeon _ floor or ground. We'll do ground for now. And we'll call this stone. Dungeon, ground, stone. Underscore, it'll be the first one actually. So dungeon, ground, stone. Now, the texture that I drew is on a 16 by 16 plane. So we're going to do 16 by 16 by 16. Width is basically length, height. So length by width is height. And then depth is, depth is the true height in a 3D model. I'm going to explain this using my art program really fast, just so those who may need the visual example. So let me boot up my art. Go into, I use Pixel Edit, but you can use whatever you'd like. This is just what I've trained on. So we're going to use a width and height of 16 by 16. That would be for our tile sets, but I'm going to do like 320 by 180, or 240 rather, just so that way you can see what I can draw and stuff. So anyways, create. This is what we're going to do. So basically, with the way that the system works is we have this structure, which is our 3D object, right? And so here's this. Depth is the depth of the object in the 3D plane. We have width and height, which is this direction, okay? So think about height is the y-axis on the 2D plane, width is the x-axis, and z-axis is the depth, essentially. Now, this isn't z order, this is like z elevate, not even z elevation, this is just z depth, 3D depth, okay? So with that out of the way, that should make this next concept pretty straightforward. Getting back into our situation, we're going to orientate our face. We can change this to Z, but we're going to leave it on Y. The back is the X-axis. We want to keep that logic true. If you change this, it kind of messes with the how the texture is laid out and what you're doing. So we're going to enable transparency textures. That just means if the texture has a transparent piece, it will show through rather than being blocked in with like a black or a background pink or something like that. So we're going to set it to enable the texture's transparency. We want to show the front face, and we want to let it react to lights. This is really important. Every game scene that you add and layer in Gdevelop has its own lighting layer. We're going to be using external lights, but they do need to react to lights. If you remove the lighting, you're going to see an error here, and that error is letting you know that without the lighting element, it won't work. But because we're using third party, it doesn't recognize it as a light source until we're running the scene. So even if you have an error here, you can completely ignore it. So now we're going to go to the tiled front face. We want to enable that, and we're going to choose a file. Abu, hello, sir. Welcome. And now that we chose a file, we're going to choose it from the device. We're going to go to the tile set that we have that I gave you guys. Go to tile set, and the first one we want to do is the dungeon floor tile. The dungeon floor tile is actually dungeon 04. we have, as you can see here, we have the dungeon corner piece. These are for transitioning. So these ones are all free for you guys. Check them out. We added some extra grass. I got pillars with pillar tops, some extra decals, and some, there's a brazier in here. So you can add fire to that if you wanted to. The dungeon wall and some wall decor. So, but Dungeon 04 is what we're using. So here we go. We loaded this up, and remember, tiled front face. That's all you got to do. You can go down here and you can disable these faces if you want, or leave them because we have the transparency enabled. Now that we have the stone added, what we're going to do is we're going to add it to our game scene. And of course, it's super tiny, and that's okay. We're going to go into our grid setup, and we're going to set it to 16 by 16 because that's the pixels that we're using. We're going to hit apply, and then we're going to show our grid. Now that I have our grid, you can kind of see that there's this weird shadow underneath your box if you zoom in. And that's because we are at a depth of 16, which means our box is standing 16 pixels off of the 0 axis. If we wanted this to be on the floor, we have to minus its depth, and that'll put it at the floor. Okay, well, if that is, if the 0 is where our player is going to be standing, this is why we're moving it downwards. So if 0 is a layer, then negative 16 down means that this will be exactly its height below the 0 axis. We could even change this to 1, but then you can see how much further back it is. If it was at 1, we would want to do negative 1. And so for the floor, that's what we're going to do. Even you can even set this actually to 0 if you want it to be a true flat plane with no sides or edges. And if you say 0, we still want to do negative 1, not 0, because we want it below one pixel below to make sure that our player doesn't fall into it or or through it. And we're going to see a couple of other errors that are going to happen because of this system, and we're going to address the Z order later because of the way the camera works, but that's okay. I have to show you each of these pieces. I want you to know why it works and how it works before anything else happens. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to pull this tiled sprite to the entire size of our canvas. This is pretty big in 3D, and you'll see why, because of the scale of our stuff. If you have models and 3D models and everything like that, you'll be able to see their size. But because there's no 3D viewport, we have to do some extra bits here. So now that we have the ground stone, I'm going to make a folder and call this tile set. And we're just going to add that into the tile set. We're going to add a new one outside. Oops, I made it inside. Drag it out if you need to. Oh, okay, come on. Inside of this one, we're going to rename it as objects or, objects. We may want one for UI. I always like to just pre-organize. We're going to call this one UI, which is actually where our sword is going to go. So that's important for this video. And then we're going to create another one and do, let's see here, particles. There we go. So we have UI, objects, tile sets, and particles. To make the object tiled, you need to make sure that you click the tile front face image. All right. No problem. So now that we have our grid, it's a little messy for those that maybe visually struggle with looking at the grid. We don't really need it until we start placing more things. So if you need to see it while you're moving around or anything like that, you can go to just enable or disable it very quickly. Okay, so now I want to go to objects, and we're going to add a new object. We're going to call the 3D box, or we're going to add a 3D box, and we're going to call it first person camera. You could make it your player and assign everything. You may want to, if you're using a 3D object, or maybe there's another object you want to use to represent the player's body, and then you could put the camera inside of it, like how games today work. You could do it that way. You could create a 3D object and then position the camera at a particular height inside of that object, bind them together so it feels like you're in the character's eyes. But effectively, this is all you need to do. So we're going to just name first person camera. I'm going to do camel casing here. Or not camel casing, but maybe? I can't remember. My brain shut off. We're going to go and make this, because our game is 16 by 16, we're going to make our player sprite 16 as well for this example, actually. At a full 16 by 16 by 16, we're going to enable texture transparency, and we're going to leave the react to lights off for this one. Go ahead and leave it. We don't need to add any textures or any sprites. We're going to hide this object anyways. So now we have a first-person camera. We're going to drag it into our game, and we're going to press preview. Or you can watch me press preview. You don't have to do this. It's not really interesting. We just have a cube and texture. It looks like a 2D game. How do we get it into 3D? That is the magic of this script that I'm going to be showing you. So this is the one that only takes a few lines of code. Let's do it. And I said before we're going to be considering mobile first, so we're going to create this with some very basic functions. We're going to start with an external event and an external group, because I'm programming this as though we are professionals, not a average developer. And this is good coding practice. So this is the finite state machine part of it. I'm not going to be we're going to be focusing on it, but not as much as I would explain it in my other videos, because I have other videos about this. So we're going to create the camera controller, or manager, and we're going to create the external script to manage our camera. So camera manager. We're going to import, and I went to projects, external events, and did it this way. I went very quickly there. And I didn't, maybe I should slow down as well to consider that. So, show you external events, camera manager. I'm going to add it now and launch the camera. Make sure we set it to our game scene, and we're going to start our events. And even though it's called camera manager, we're now going to I'm going to name this one actually first person camera. And we're going to start our event. So if you click on your event group after you make it, Shift D to create a child. And if I clicked on the next one, did Shift D, you'd keep making it down. But this one is pretty straightforward. We're going to make 4 children. We're going to need 4 of them. And we're going to start with the first child. The first child is actually a parent object, so we're going to need a child element. But we're going to start with when you are programming, I'm going to say this so that way we can get this out of the way, and I do mention this in other videos. If you know what you're doing, you can kind of pre-plan ahead or just give yourself some extra space. There's no harm in doing this. But as we move forward, if you have conditions that you're going to be checking multiple times, you need to make it so that you check it as least amount of possible. So don't add every condition. If we're checking something is true and we're doing micro triggers underneath each of them, make them children. Like if this button is pressed and you have multiple functions that are going to happen for it, or if you're carrying an object is true, or there's some sort of transition, I don't know. Whatever the case is, if you have multiple scripts repeating anything, form them into one group and add them at the top. In this particular case, we're only doing one, and yeah, optimization is key. So right now, though, we're going to go to the condition and do mobile. We're going to check, is a device mobile, and we're going to invert it, saying if we are not mobile, let's do these conditions. And honestly, I just like parenting it this way, even though this is only one. I want each thing to be underneath here. So if we're not a mobile device, and in our child condition, we're going to use mouse button released. The reason why we're using released and not down is if this was true, down would run every frame that the object is down, even if you do once. You can say trigger once, and for the most part, it should just run one time, but there is a chance because of the way that just Gdevelop runs script. I've done that before and still had errors. So we're just going to use released instead, which is a one-time if true statement. You don't need to necessarily say trigger once unless you're triggering a Boolean or something. So we're going to say press this, and then this happens. We're going to use the left primary button. Okay? And we're going to start using our very first script the extension that we added. The very first one that we do is an extra condition, because right now this would be running, right? When it's released, trigger something endlessly, begin whatever this is. We need to add a stopping condition, and the condition is the mouse pointer. So we're gonna do excuse me, mouse and then pointer, or you can just say mouse point, and it's called pointer is locked. And we want this to be inverted, saying if it is not locked, okay? If the left mouse button is released and the mouse pointer is locked, or in this case is not locked, we want to request as an action. So request, the pointer is locked. And this way we don't see our default Windows mouse texture and a few other things. So we're going to go in here and request pointer lock, hit OK. And then we need to make a subchild, not a subchild, a child of the main event. So a partner. And we're going to duplicate, holding control. We can duplicate by dragging this down. We're going to duplicate it or just drag it into here. When we click on it and press the J key, we can unbind it. Or you can double click and invert the condition. So it says now the mouse pointer is locked, right? The mouse pointer is now locked. What do we want to do when our mouse pointer is locked? You may have guessed it already. What we're going to do, if the mouse pointer is locked, we're going to now optimize and read our mouse input. So now we're going to change the angle of our mouse first. Now remember, we've got some goofy stuff happening here. It may not make sense, but I'm gonna explain why we do it this way. Considering how Gdevelop operates in its 3D plane, and this may change in the future with 3D being supported more and more in every single update for Gdevelop. Remember, if you're joining us now, it is still in a young stage. Remember to save often, by the way, Control S. But it's in a young state. So what we're gonna do is go add action, go to our first person camera, and we're gonna change the angle, right? A 2D angle, because this is a 3D object, and because of how height and width and depth work, we're going to use the 2D angle feature, and we're going to add, and it's important because we're adding to a value as we move around, and that allows us to basically to look, right? We're adding something, so no matter where we look, it's going to be like well, yeah, we're gonna do the math here. So my phone is blowing up. I'm trying to mute that so that way I can focus here. Okay. So now what we're going to do, I'm gonna seriously mute my phone completely here. Not even a vibration. Don't do this. It'll distract me, phone. Complete silence, please. Bliss. All right. So now what we're going to do is use the mouse pointer lock movement X feature. Now that we have X, we're going to divide it by 10. And this is just a division of how smoothly do we want it to follow this, basically. It's not like a lerp. You don't want lerping. That lerping would make it so that way when you look left and look right, there's kind of this acceleration and delay in the way that your character looks. Maybe that's important for maybe some sort of weird horror element or something to add weird, fluid, delayed reactions in your camera. I don't know. I don't know why you do that, but maybe that's a reason. But 10 seems to be good. You could do something else. 10's a whole good number. And because when we're moving around, the increments are huge. So now we're going to go into the rotation. So again, we have to use the angle of the 2D for the x-axis. But because our face in the engine is the y-axis, we need to now go into the camera. We need to go down to the 3D options, which is down here on angle. And now we have a new one called rotate on the y-axis. And this is the 3D y-axis and not the 2D x-axis or y-axis. So this is more, this represents depth, up and down. Okay, so now what we need to do is go into here and do the same thing. We need to set it to add, and then mouse pointer lock, movement y divided by 10. You could change it again if you wanted to. 10's a good round number. And there's that. The next thing we want to do, and kind of outside of the script, so I'm going to add some comments. This is a great idea for those that are getting started and you want to know kind of what's going on. We're going to check if the device is in mobile mode. And then we're going to duplicate that and bring it down here. And down here, we're going to say request if, and the reason why we do this with a mouse click release is because in Gdevelop, to begin to request this pointer lock, when we use the web version, and this may be important for people who add music and things, the player needs to interact with the game before music can be activated. We can't assume that it'll automatic, because some web browsers will block it, and if it runs automatically. So we need to make sure that they click the button to interact with it, like I press here to start the game, and then we can implement all of these cool features. So that's why we have to click first. So you'll launch the game, click into your game, and then you can move your camera, which is pretty traditional. I mean, you wouldn't really, I mean, if you're going to use a mouse game anyways, your movement would work, but as soon as you click the mouse, then it'll let you lock in and move your head. But we would do this before you even loaded into the game. So this would happen on the main menu, right? Play game, you have to click it. So we can use that as a requirement to move forward. But for now, we're going to change this to if the request interaction from player. Let's see. Request a pointer lock on the camera, and then we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to say down here, this is the camera mouse movement. Let's see here. Sorry, I was reading what Riley was saying, and I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. This is the order it needs to be in, Riley. This is the order. Camera mouse movement logic. Now what we want to do is outside of this event, there's something important that we do. And we're going to do something called clamping. So I'm going to copy the comment, do this again in the comment section. Okay. We're going to prevent camera from flipping. Okay. Flipping on the X or on the Y axis. And this doesn't sound super important necessarily immediately, but I promise it is. And this is what happens here, and what we're going to program is we're going to use this Y axis, and we're going to set it down here, copy it, duplicate it with that control or copy paste. Remember, this is outside of the camera script. So you can now, or that part, you can go ahead and collapse that down. Now we're going to say prevent camera from flipping on the Y axis, which means like we're going to say actually from offsetting on the Y axis. We don't want this to actually get borked. So now what we're going to do is, even though we're adding right here and dividing by this amount, now what we're going to do is set this, not add to it. We're going to set to, and we're going to use the same movement, but we're going to clamp it basically, or we're going to do something very similar. So we're going to do something called clamp, and clamp needs three inputs. We need a value. So what we're clamping, the original value, the minimum of that value, and the maximum of that value. Now, you may want to clamp, let's say you have something like pi, 3.14, blah, 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 or a really big number that you're getting. You can shrink it down to a nearest value by using the min and max. So it's like the value point, how far over you want it to clamp so that it cuts the number off and doesn't pass through something astronomically large. You can trim that up. So what we're going to do is trim up the movement. And so we're going to create a clamp feature or function. And we're going to set the camera dot, and you're not going to see this in your drop-down menu, and I'll explain why in a second, but camera dot rotation Y. Oh, Y. And we need to close it like we would do anything else. And sorry, not camera, whatever you named your camera. So in this case, we named our camera first person camera. So it needs to be first person camera. Oops. Click on camera and add first person camera. Now, first person camera rotation, even though there's an error here right now, in a moment, it will go away. So we're going to clamp the first person camera with a value of -90 to 90. And this means we're clamping it between two values. So it will not, this prevents us from flipping our neck. Imagine that this is your neck. What we're doing is we're saying you can look flat with your eyes down to the floor, and you can look all the way up, but you can't snap your neck and look around. You can't flip upside down, right? You're not swimming or anything like that. You don't want that to happen. So this is the way we do this. So now that we have that clamp, what is happening here on the rotation, and you can see it like this. See, 3D object rotation. It's actually baked in. If you click this, it would object 3D rotation Y, or just see rotation Y. We can just go back. We can call it as we did before, rotation Y. It's the same thing. So this looks cleaner, and it's a shorthand version of that long format. But that's why we do it. Now we have one more script. So I actually lied. We don't need that many. We just need one more. And in the flow, we're going to position, we're going to copy and paste this, and now we're going to, let's see, prevent, we're going to say move the camera, or move the eyes, allow player to look in 3D. Player's eyes. This is a condition that runs all the time. What we want to do is leave the condition blank, and we're going to run into an action, and we're going to say move. And we're going to, oh, actually, we can just write eyes, rather. Eyes are better. Hello? What did I forget to do? Oh. Did I enable? Ah, we missed an extension. That's my fault. We missed an extension. For those that have been following along, you're my bad. We have one more extension to add, and that's the camera extension. The camera, first-person camera extension. First-person 3D camera. That is why. So now that we close that, after we add it, we can go into our actions, type eyes, and look through object eyes. And we're going to click on the first-person camera. And then we're going to hit OK. And now, if I was to click preview, and I will, so you can see, we can now see and look up and down. You might have this crazy purple block and wonder what in the heck is going on. That is because the player's block at the beginning is viewable. Even though we set everything to transparent, there's no textures there, and so it's blinding our camera. So the best thing that we can do is go into our camera manager, and at the very top, we're going to add one more condition. So I guess I said we didn't need it. I lied. We do need it. You could add it to here if you wanted to, but I think that this is a great time to use a beginning of the scene script. And at the beginning of the scene, we're simply going to hide the camera. Okay? This doesn't prevent you from using its features. It just simply hides the object. Now, okay, we're looking around, but where in the heck is our ground? Now, this is part of what I was saying before. So, because of how we have this set up, we need to rotate ourselves -90, and you can see what's happening here. If I click this button, we should be rotating in a direction. I want first -90, because this moves me from facing this way to facing up. And I always like to make it so that when I start my game, I'm facing the north direction. It just, for me, it makes more sense. Okay, so now I'm going to move this down to -17. And the reason is because our player is at a depth level. I want them to stop at the 0 layer, but they're 16 tall. 0's at their feet. And if I don't move the ground down, or 0's at the like the peak of the camera. So because we don't have an object using collision, we're gonna fall until we're in the floor. And there. And simply that fixed it. We were inside of the floor. I moved it down, and now we're on the floor. But no movement's happening. Because we're using a 3D extension, there is no feature to automatically move your player like it is if you add the condition or the extension like top-down platformer. It's not built into it. And that's actually a good thing. So now we need to build our player's finite state machine to move ourselves. So at the beginning, what I want you to do is to go back to your game scene, create some new event groups. We're going to call this player finite state machine. And we're going to paste another one. We can make a debug manager, just so we can plan ahead of some of the things that we're going to be doing. I'm going to reduplicate the camera manager script, put it underneath the player finite state machine, go into our external events, and say player finite state machine. We're going to change the camera manager to the player finite state machine, launch into it, and create the game scene. So for us to be able to begin our movement, we need to go to our game scene, go to our first-person camera, go to the behaviors, add a behavior, and we're going to start with 3D walk. We're going to add another behavior and call 3D jump. I already know that my jump height is way too high. And the reason is, in our game, we're on a 16 by 16 plane in 2D, if you think about it in 2D. So here we are with X for this direction and Y for this direction. So what we need to do is jump our player a certain distance from the floor. And right now it's 150. That's huge. We don't want that. I want you to think about this game like Minecraft if you've ever played it. This is the tutorial, but I will be cutting this up. Yeah, I will be. I'll be cutting all of this up into a beautiful, easy, streamlined video. So one of the things that we need to consider while developing 3D is if this is Minecraft, right? Then our block, in this case, we're going to pretend we're using the same sprite size, 16 tall. And if our player is 16 tall, that means that we're one block size tall. Well, I want our player to be a little bit taller than that, so we're going to aim for something like, double this would be 32, and that's much too tall. So we're going to put our player between, we're going to say 24 to 26 blocks tall, or pixels tall, okay? And then we want to jump 1.5 times the pixel, or roughly 1.5 times. Because if we jumped exactly 16, we wouldn't be able to get on top of the block, because it's the exact size. We need to jump at least one more, but we don't want it to feel like we can barely jump. We want to jump somewhere in between this and the next block, unless you want your character to jump even higher. So that's how we do the math on that one, if that makes sense. So let's go backwards here. I'm going to remove some of this because it's messy. Okay. So now what we're going to do is move into back to our project. And the jump height, we're going to say, we're going to use 24 because it is 8 times 3. So 1.5 times 16, 16 by 1.5. So we're going to say roughly 24. The fall speed, I like the gravity there. We're going to do it a little bit less, maybe feel a little bit more bouncy, so 600. The maximum speed is much too fast. We're going to use 128 as the maximum speed, and even this might be too fast. So this is, of course, multiple times our speed. We could change acceleration and optimize this, but I feel like this might be good enough. Let's preview our project, and I'm going to raise my player off the ground a little bit. He is 16 deep, and we could do 32. But because of the way that the camera works, we actually want to add the height here. We're going to add the player up another 8 pixels. It raises us off the ground. Maybe you want that more traditional approach, but now we have our movement, but we can't move because we didn't configure the keys. But at the beginning, we did set them up as global variables. So now we get to do the player's movement scripts. So I want you to go in the player's finite state machine. We're going to create a new event group, and we're going to call this the move state. Okay. Inside, we need to go back to our game scene, open up our player camera, and add a new variable. We're going to add a variable, and we're going to call this player state, as in what state the player is currently in. We're going to set it to a string, and we're going to start it off with idle. We're going to say apply, and now inside of our finite state machine, we need move state, we need idle state, and for now, that'll be everything we have. So we have, I also like to do initialize, and that'll be part of our debug, and we're going to say debug state. Debug state. Each of these need a child, but we're going to replace that child with a link external script. But we do actually need this external script to be underneath each of these. So if you want to, you could copy and paste them that way, but this is what we need to do. Because the condition that we're going to check is if the variable of the first-person camera, if the variable of the first-person camera, and we made it a text variable, if the player state, because we declared it, it'll be in the drop-down list, which declaring it means that we predefined it in the engine. We pre-declared this, so it's available in the variable state. We're going to equal this to idle. So right now, that's what it's set to in the engine. So as soon as the game begins, it'll check for the player's finite state machine and load the player into the idle state. We're going to link. We haven't created the scripts yet, so we got to create them. We're going to say player finite state machine idle. Create another one, player finite state machine move. And we're going to duplicate the condition here and change this one to move. Now we can link our scripts, idle and move, and we're going to start in the idle script. Choose the scene, the game scene. And for idle, we're going to check if any of the keys are pressed and move out of idle. So we don't have animations with our character because we're not looking at them in 3D. So we don't need animations right now. Maybe our hands will animate, and later we will do that. So for now, we're going to do idle animation as an event group. Idle animation. And then we're going to make a new one called movement transition. Transition. Now we're going to add a condition in the movement, and we're going to check if this is true. We're going to say keyboard. So key, not keyboard, but key pressed text expression. Key pressed text expression. Now we're going to just, okay, we're going to copy this multiple times in the same one for all the keys. So if none of these keys are pressed, do this. So click on all of them, press J to transform them all. You can also do it no, you can't do it at a group level. I forgot. You have to select them holding shift click, or invert them all. Now, if the key isn't pressed, well, we don't have to do it. It's expecting you to do a string, but because there already is string being defined, we don't have to add the actual string. We can just say controls and say forward, controls backwards. So I'm just going to copy controls dot. This makes it super fast. we just paste it in backwards. And we're going to say jump, and we're going to say left, we're going to say right. So if none of these keys are being pressed, we would stay in the idle state, right? So now we can say if none of those keys are being pressed, great. If all of these keys, oops, copy and paste, not duplicate. Duplicating doesn't work the way that I just tried to do it. You have to do it with the individual conditions, not the entire block. But now we're going to invert for the move. So that's if we're not pressing. Now we're going to say if any of these are pressed. Now this says if all of them are pressed, we need to add an or condition here. And that's why we did it. I designed it the way I did when I was showing you how to do it, even though we were in the move transition, because there is slight differences. If one of these is pressed, and we're going to remove the jump condition. So if any of the movement keys are pressed, transition our character into the move state. First person camera, variable, text, and we're going to change the player state to move. Just like this. This needs to be in a string like this. Okay, so if we do this transition, if any key is pressed and we're in the idle state, leave the idle state. Let's go to move. Now we can, and the reason why we're doing this, so some of you may be like, well, I could have just done that in one script. Well, you could, but it's not very organized, and it makes it difficult to debug what's going on. And there's a lot going on right now, and you may be tempted to keep pressing preview, but nothing really has changed yet. But it's about to. So now we move into the move state, choose the scene variable, game scene. Or sorry, the associated scene, not game variable. We're going to say game scene. Choose. And, oh, I hit my keyboard. And we can go back into this and copy this move transition. And we're just going to paste it in here. We're going to delete that condition, create a new event group, and call this player movement controls. Inside of the player movement controls, we drag this over. We're going to delete. We're not going to do it that way. We're going to move each of these out so we can use them again, and then delete the or condition. And now I want you to duplicate this a few times. We're going to do it 4 times, get rid of the actions. Don't need that right now. And then for each one, we're going to do forward, okay? So we're going to delete backwards, left, and right. The next one we'll do is backwards, then left, and then right. And now that we have the control, we need to simulate the control. So this works exactly like if you're doing a platformer or anything else. So controls.forward key is pressed, click the action key, go to the camera, and now you'll see we have the top-down walk state. We want to go in here and say, okay, move forward, perfect. And we're going to duplicate this every time. And then we're going to change the key from forward to backwards by double-clicking. I'm doing it quickly because I expect that most of you would know how to do this. And if not, there are plenty of videos on how. But again, double-click if you need to. Or you can go in and add the action every time. Whatever works for you. We're going to use the move left and move right. Now, we could use simulate turning. Now, this turn key will pivot us by rotating us in a plane. So there's a few things that can kind of happen here. You can use it to snap to a position left and right, so we can make a more traditional movement control. There's a simulate stick control button. This allows you to, of course, configure a controller on the axis and all of that. So beautiful stuff that we can do here with left. And then here we're going to move right. Okay. Now, here it is. You guys ready? Press preview. Once you click in your game scene and can look around, WASD now works. We have no jump currently, but look at this. We now have a 3D movement camera. We're able to move around our game scene with relative ease, and we're able to start creating our project. So the very next thing that I want you to do is let's go ahead and close this out. You can just hit Control W to close it if you want to. And we're going to add one more key. We're going to go into a jump state. For now, I'm not going to create a new script because it's just one key press and it's only going to happen while we're moving. And maybe not, actually. We might want to jump while we're idle. I don't want to be lazy. we're going to do this the right way. We're going to copy and paste the state, and we're going to call this one jump state. We're going to do everything we did before and say jump. And now we need to create that jump script. So player, finite state machine, jump. Transition into our jump state. Okay, hello. Let's remove this, thank you. And go to jump, add, and choose the scene, the game scene. Okay. Woo! We have done so much work in the last hour and a half. Good job, by the way, if you're following along. This is, there may be a lot of things you're scratching your head about. I'm hoping that I'm targeting and answering your questions preemptively. But it's pretty straightforward. Like I said, it only takes 4 lines of code to actually get the camera to work. The movement's another 4 lines of code. And now we're transitioning into our jump. So now what we want to say is, well, jump. So when the key is to jump, we're going to jump. When key is pressed, jump. So that's pretty straightforward. We can go into the movement script and copy the controls key. We're going to paste it in here. And we're going to... My cat just opened the door. That scared me. I know I was home alone, and I heard the door unlock. My cat is huge and can open the door. It's a raptor. It's a raptor cat. I got raptor cat going on in my house right now. All right. You're a predator cat. Oh, and then she shut the door. She's in here. She's in here now. But I don't know if you guys heard the door close. She opened the door. I heard it unlatch. She came into my room. And then she turned around and closed the door. Now she's in here. Now, she did this so I can't throw her out. I can't just tell her to go away now. Now I have to pick her up and get her out of here. Don't meow at me, please. I'm recording. Respect my space, okay? Mira, respect it. She's looking at me like, what? I didn't do anything to you. And then we want to move over here and say, hello, cat. I'm live streaming. Yeah, you can go on the rocking chair. What? She wants in my lap. She's looking at me like, dude, pick me up right now. Okay, enough of the cat distraction. We're going to go into simulate the jump key press. Hit OK. So when the jump key is pressed, right, we want to do this. But this is actually goofy because we can't run this state. So, and again, I'm doing things intentionally this way to show you the right way to do it. Your brain might say, oh, this is how we do it. Actually, when we enter the state, we want to do this one time. We're just going to we're going to jump once. That's it. And then as soon as we're done, right, simulate the jump key press. And then as soon as we're done with that, we need to transition back into idle. So jump, and then we can check on the floor so if the player is in collision with the floor. I think another way to do this is, let's see here. Because on floor doesn't work, right? Because, oh, they have a is on floor. There it is. I was going to say, there's normally the top down would have or the platformer would have a is on floor, but we want to use 3D is on floor. And so now that we have is on floor, we can hit OK. And now when we are on the floor, do this one time. We don't need to, we don't need to run it all the time. Either way, it doesn't really matter. So what we can do is now transition into the idle state. So we're going to do variable, okay, text, change idle state equal to, or change into the idle state. And what's really important here is we have to go back into the move state, copy our movement controls, and add them back to our jump state. And the reason is, okay, hello, cat. Ow, that hurts. Why are you doing this? Ow. My cat is ripping out my leg. Okay, we're also going to duplicate this text, key jump, press. The reason why I haven't deleted it yet is because we're going to change it into the jump state. And then we're going to, just like this player movement. Okay, I'm going to have to get rid of you in a moment. We're going to copy this, move into our next transition, And we're gonna make a new event group and call it jump transition. And now we have to add this jump transition to each transition. Like, what are we gonna do? How do we get out of here? How do we leave the state in each one? Because we're using a finite state machine, we have to declare everything we're doing in every state. Does it repeat some code? Yes, but not in the way that you think. It's not messy because we are defining, we have absolute control of, can we move when we jump? How do we move when we jump? How do we move when we're in idle? Well, obviously we don't move in idle. That's the whole purpose of idling. So then we don't have that control, but we need to know what we can do in idle. And we just said we can move in idle, get to the move state, and we can get to the jump state. So in the jump state, once we enter it, jump. And then while we're jumping, we can move around. And then with gravity applied and all of that, and now we can do a idle transition. So I'm going to, before we move on here, create a new event group and call it idle transition. And we're going to add that there. Now the idle transition may look different on each one. So when we enter the jump state, if we're on the floor, well, we're going to start on the floor. So we need to say, let's see here, is on the floor and isn't moving. So we need to go back in that move, the idle, and go to that idle animation script, copy that. That's why I left it here. So we're going to copy this, go back into our jump state, and add that condition here. So we're going to say, if we're on the floor, trigger this one time, or trigger this all the time. If we're on the floor and no keys are pressed, go back to idle. And we can say, yeah. So now we have an idle transition. If we're on the floor and no keys are pressed, transition to idle. In the move state, we can also add this. If we're moving and then stop moving, so we're going to paste back in the idle transition, and we can just go into jump now and copy that and say in our movement script, we can do this a little bit differently. Remove the floor statement and just leave it like this. In the idle, if we're not pressing any keys, and we can include the jump key in this, and then transition into idle. Go back into our idle state, copy the jump transition, and now we need to move it into the move state. So now, from movement, we did a lot of programming right here. And I want to explain what, if you don't know what's going on here and need an explanation. Again, going from our finite state machine, so removing debug logic, pretending like this doesn't exist now, we can go into idle, move, and jump. So as soon as you press the key, which we start in the idle state, it's okay, Riley. Totally fine. I'm going to slow down and express what's going on, and you can catch up while we're doing that. So here in the idle state, we start the game because we set it inside of our game scene, and we set it in the player state idle. Okay, so we start the game in idle. Later on, we'll change it to a debug state or initialize state so we can make sure that our code is running optimally and without any bugs. But here we go, we say idle, hit apply, or cancel, doesn't matter. Now we can follow the logic. So here we can say, okay, at the beginning of the game scene, we're loading the player finite machine, the finite state machine always, right? So in the very beginning, we can check player finite state machine, click on it. The player state is idle. Let's follow it. Inside of idle, well, this happens. This isn't important right now. So that's blank. In idle, we can either idle, which means do nothing, but we may add idle animations like the sword moving and things like that, so we'll just blank it out for now. And then we go into move transition. If any of these buttons are pressed, move, go to move. So we're going to go to move real quick and say when we're in the move state and these keys are being pressed, do this. And in idle, if none of these keys are being pressed, including jump, go to idle. If the jump control is pressed, change the state to jump. if the jump key is pressed, change to jump. Go to jump. Okay, what do we do when we enter the jump state? Trigger this once, jump. Just jump. As soon as you get in here, jump. Now, if you press any keys while you're jumping, rather than going to the move state, which we don't want to do, we want to jump and tell them what we can do inside of this state. If you want to move, we want to keep the logic in jumping, because there's a fall, basically. You know, are you falling in this state? And maybe we want to limit the controls of how you fall. You could add a fall state, but for now we're going to skip that and just say you can move while you're jumping. But if you're on the floor and no keys are being pressed, and even we're not going to do the jump key, because you have no choice. You have to leave the jump state, because as soon as you touch the floor and you're not jumping, you're returning immediately back to idle. And from idle, we can either go to the move state or jump. So now we have a full logic. If we press preview, now we can look around our screen and jump. And now, there it is. So if you're moving and then you jump, we can't jump again. You have to stop moving to jump. So that means that after we jump, we're moving and we're still in the jump state. So actually, we need to go into our jump state and say if we're not on the floor. So we're going to copy this and delete the bottom and say if we're on the floor, and this is true. Obviously, that's not what we want. We need to invert this, press J. If we're not on the floor and our keys are pressed, do this. And then if we're on the floor, for this one, we actually don't need these key presses. That was my accident. The idle transition for jump is specific. The jump transition for idle is if we're on the floor at all, go back to idle. If we're not on the floor, we can move. So now we can move and jump without needing to, there's no error there. So now we can walk and jump. Beautiful. Look at this. Okay, so you want an object you can jump on. I heard you say it. I heard it out loud. Don't worry about it. I got you. The first thing we're going to do is duplicate our ground texture. This is a 3D texture. Yours is a bit broken. All right, well, I'll take a moment to help you out, Riley. Let me know what's broken, what's happening, and how can I help you? See, this is where finite state machines are so important, because if a script is broken, you can use your key, you can use what you're doing, right? You know, to feel out your game and figure out where it's breaking. But I'm going to show you a way to do this very easily. Well, I see the floor when I fall and see this purple line across the screen. Riley, did you hide the cube? So at the beginning of your scene, are you hiding the camera? Okay. When you fall, does the floor disappear? Can you not see the floor anymore? Okay. Then you probably didn't do this. On your dungeon floor, set its Z order to -17 and its depth to 1. Yeah. And the reason why is because your player is standing off the floor at 16, and if you leave it at the default value of 1, it's right below where the camera eye is. Because in the camera, it's actually in the middle of this cube. It's not where you think it would be, like on the feet or the head. And that's why some people make a 3D object and then put the camera on top of it. But this is one way to guarantee that this works without needing to do that. There's a couple different ways that you can do it. The secret to making video games, everyone, the absolute secret, You ready for this? If you can imagine this for a moment, making a game is not about how good you are as a programmer. Making a game, being a game developer, is about making a game any way you can. Any way you can. That means no matter what your skill level is, you should be making games within your limit and pushing yourself to learn more, of course. But it's about making it work as best as you can and making a game that way. It doesn't matter what's the best program to use or anything else. The real importance is that you continue to strive to just develop anything that you can. I don't care if it's a simple clicker game. It doesn't matter the genre or what you're doing. All you have to do is make it as best as you can. If it works, it works. That's it. Boom, done. Easy. That's the secret. Okay. When I can jump, but I can't move or jump. You mean, but then you can't move or jump. Okay, so in your idle script, well, so here's the thing that we're going to do to build a way for us to now, Riley, because of the movement script, right? Because of what's happening, you need to debug what's going on. How do you do that? I don't want to tell you the answer to how to fix it right now by going to our program and looking over everything we've coded. Instead, everybody, this is the best thing to do, okay? In our camera manager, if we wanted to, we could do it in here, but in the game events, I'm actually going to do it right here. We're going to create a temporary script. We're not going to do an external script. We're going to name it debug, okay? And we're going to do a very simple thing. Right now, we're going to go to our game scene. Inside of the UI element, inside of UI, create a new object, call it text. We're going to add, a little bit of drop shadow on this, just to make it pop out a little bit. We don't need it. We'll do a white lettering with a black outline, with some black drop shadow. So just, if you want to, we're going to name this debug text. And we're going to leave this as it is. So now we're going to hit apply. We're going to add a new layer to our game. So go ahead and close your instances. Go to your layers, which is up here. I accidentally closed my property manager. So this is the instance list button. This is the layers button. We're going to add a new layer. We're going to call this UI. And we're going to leave it as it is. We're going to drag our debug text, and we're going to put it up here at the top. So the reason why we're putting it at the top is because technically this is where our camera is, and the UI layer is 2D, which means it will not move from 2D. So this is your player's HUD now. So in the player HUD at the top left, we have a debug text. What I want to do is in our programming, go into the game scene, go to debug. All we need to do is go to the action, the debug text, text. Okay, then equals, here we go. We want to equal, we're going to say state, semicolon, or colon rather, space, end quote. And that adds, because this is a string, right? So this is going to print just like this with the space, plus, which means add this in addition to, and then we're going to target the first person camera and the player state. That's it. So it's going to pass through this because the player state's a string. We don't need to say variable string. We can just say state plus the player state. Let's say OK and press preview. And where? Oh, when I added the the debug event, go to the UI and set it to the UI layer. And we can set the Z order to 0. Doesn't really matter. Just for now, do that. So now we have our script. So as we move, we can see we're moving. Like when I jump, I can see I'm jumping. And when I'm idle, I can see I'm idle. And the reason why we do this is we can see where we get stuck without needing to use the debugger, because the debugger requires us to refresh it every time we want to see a change. It doesn't automatically do it in some places. And so we have to preview all the time. It makes it hard to know what you're clicking on and everything else. So by doing this instead, we can see in real time what state do we get stuck in. So if you get stuck in a state, you can then see what's probably happening is while you're moving, when you jump, you enter the jump state, but then you never leave the jump state. And that means you can't jump again. So if you get stuck in a jump, like if I hold jump down and I continuously hold it down, I'm stuck in idle and I can't move because my thumb key is still pressed. And so what I want to do as well to fix this bug, and so that is a bug. We can see it's in the idle script. We think it's in the idle script. And it is true. It is in the idle script because there's no... We're waiting for the key to be pressed again, right? So if I go back into idle and we go into jump, it requires it to be pressed. And so we're already holding this down. But jump is triggering once because this is once when we enter it in a loop. If we remove this and go to the jump state and press jump, now I can jump endlessly, but I never leave the jump state, which may be fine for some of you, but that's not what I want. I want to hit idle first and then jump again. So now I'm stuck in jumping because it's never going to end. Even if I let go of the key, it's never going to end. So we do need to keep the trigger once. But what's happening is when we're on the floor, we're going to idle. But my key is still pressed. Let's go back to our idle and see what's going on. When key is pressed, jump. Well, we're already in idle, and we press the jump key. Let's see what happens when we add a trigger once here. When we trigger once and we jump, what happens? Well, same thing, right? We're still stuck in the same problem. When we jump, we go back to idle. And now when we move, we can jump again. Let's go back to our move state. When jump key is pressed, jump. Okay, go back to our idle. Remove the trigger once. Because that's like a double trigger once. The same thing is happening. But we can't move. And because I'm holding down the space key, it's going to jump. And then it's going immediately back because we haven't added a variable to control how many times we can jump. So because the button is still being held down, it thinks we're jumping and returning back to idle, but it's happening so fast that the state isn't actually changing. And so sometimes that's how you debug what's going on. It's not really in our idle state, it's in our jump state. Because as we press, and that's what I was showing you. So as you press the button, it transitions into the jump. So this should happen, but it's already triggered once because we left the state, entered the state, and the key is still being held down. So we're not getting that new signal that says jump again. We can add a jump variable that says like how many times have you jumped? 0. When you jump, +1. When you enter idle, go back to 0. So it triggers this automatically again. Sorry, I hiccuped in the middle of speaking. And I've been speaking so much, my mouth is getting dry. Okay, so. Oh, my back. Oh, I hope you guys didn't hear that, but that was brutal. Oh, I sound like a zipper. All right. Guys, I'm not even lying. My cat opened the door and left. Raptor. Velociraptor. It's terrifying. I live with a monster. But I don't mind that you don't automatically jump. And the thing I love the most is that because I'm in the jump state and I'm holding the jump key, and the condition says, well, I need to press the other keys to jump, but it won't let me because I'm in the jump state. So what we should be able to do is add that trigger once again. And now we should be able to still move or leave the jump state. And we're seeing that's happening. Because now when I move, I automatically jump when I'm holding the jump key down and pressing forward, which more or less is exactly what we wanted. Because now when I move forward and I'm holding jump, it'll automatically jump the second I take my first step. And that's kind of an ease of use feature. I don't want to continuously jump anyways. I hate that mechanic. It's immersion breaking, and it makes the skill of jumping not hard. If we increase the air acceleration, we could even do jumping like Counter-Strike, where you can bunny hop and move across the map very quickly. And those are just things that we could implement. So now that we have our idle script working, and now we don't, when we hold the space key, we're not looping through those jumps. So Control W, and I'm gonna check in with Riley here. Riley, have you figured out your issue? Not yet. Did you do the debugger text? Which one of my events would you like to look at? And that way I can hold it open, because I actually got to use the washroom for a minute. So I'd like to take a brief moment to take a 5-minute break without transitioning. So, I'm just going to leave it open. Let me know what script you would like to look at. Jump, of course. Here you go. And I will be right back. All right. I'm just getting back. Let me get a drink of water here with my water, and I'll get talking again. But if you guys didn't see it in the comment section, let me know who's still with us and where you're from. I'm always curious to know. And if you're watching this video later on and you get to this part, please do let me know where you're from in the comment section. I'd love to know. Of course, expected Riley to be here. Riley's from the UK. I'm from the US, but I love to hear where everyone's from and how your Gdevelop journey is going and all of this. So, yeah, please. Oh, we did not want that. Okay, there we go. Anyways, give me just a second. We'll get back to programming. Yes, but Riley, but you learned a very valuable lesson. This is why we do the debug text. This is why. And if you want to, everyone, you can bring the script orientation matters where you put things. But in this regard, for debug, it doesn't matter, but I like to put it at the top. All right. This is probably too much information. I gotta cut my mustache. It's getting too long. It's getting to the point where it's itching my nose, tickling my lip. Gotta stop this. I'm about to go shave it off so I don't have to keep eating my own hair while I'm trying to talk to you guys. All right. In my original videos, before I got better sound set up, you could literally hear me scratching my beard. Beard ASMR while I was programming. I was like, oh, come on, Alex. These people are not here to listen to your background noise. Yeah, death indeed. Okay. So it seems like it's just us. That's all right. Everyone's at work today. It's a very busy day, so I didn't expect many to be here, and that's why I try to be very focused on what I'm doing here, because everything I covered in this video is like 3 parts to my Doom series, or my Dungeon Crawler series. So a lot of information in this video already, and we haven't even reached hour 2. So I'm going to go as far as I can stomach today, which will probably just be a couple more hours, because there's other projects I want to work on. But no, yeah, for us this last year in America, Easter was on, was actually celebrated. Yes, it was Easter Sunday. Now it's, Easter Monday. It's interesting. It's very interesting how that ended up working this year. But, 1 second. Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. That's what I was going to say. So we had the celebration, but now it's bank holiday. And a lot of people are off right now. But I think everybody's just enjoying their Monday off. People are sleeping in. It's a lazy day. At least in America, it's not, we haven't even got to noon yet. But even so, even for bank holidays, everyone still works in our country. We don't take a holiday off. Everybody's still at work. It's just banks and government buildings are all closed, and people who care close their store and stuff down, but most people don't. All right. And now we're back. Okay. So in our game scene, the very next thing, so we're going to go back to our preview just to re-see where we're at. We have our move script working, and I realized what the problem was while I was away. It's funny. I have some friends that have reminded me that when you're in the washroom, you remember things and you get ideas. Some people call them shower thoughts, bathroom thoughts. When your brain gets distracted for a moment, maybe it's a neurodivergent thing, but some people got nothing going on in their heads. I got a lot, too much, in fact. So I was thinking, what happens is when we transition to the jump state, we check for on the floor, and it immediately sets us back to idle. So in a way, we never leave the idle state, because as we jump, originally, we went right in idle, right? We can still move, but before it used to lock us into place, and now if I stop moving, after moving, and then press forward again, I jump. Why is that happening? Well, that's happening because I'm in idle, and now I'm moving, and as I press W, I go into the move state, and because I'm still holding the jump key, I jump immediately. But then, as soon as I land, I go back to idle, and I'm stuck in idle. Why? What's happening? because right here I'm moving and I'm in idle. What is this? Well, that's actually because I'm holding the button down. I'm still in the jump state because I never left. Well, I did in text, but in the code, it's switching between idle and jump so fast that every time we're on the floor, if we're on the floor and the jump key isn't being pressed, if we're on the floor and the jump key isn't pressed, is not pressed, go into idle. And now, when we move and we jump, I lock in place. This is what I wanted. You might wonder why. Why, Alex? Why do you want to stay in the jump state? Because even though I'm in the jump state and I've landed, I'm still holding the jump key. And I want my game to have jump puzzles that you actually have to jump to, not hold the button down and bunny hop. Because of our air acceleration and the way I'm developing this retro version of a first-person game, a re-envisionment, I want to add some of the more traditional retro limitations. So for those who are Doom fanatics, this is alien to that version of the game. Jumping wasn't an option, and neither was looking up and down. So this is definitely more of a kind of a Doom 3D plus modern camera movement. I will later on drop more information specifically in my content series about how to do a very traditional Doom game, but my Doom-like 3D dungeon crawler Into the Deep is going to be about using that modern system and re-envisioning the way that these games could now be made. Hey, what's going on, Funk? How was work, sir? Hope everything is good, my guy. Appreciate you coming back in here. I was wondering who joined. I saw the viewership go up. I had a suspicion it was you, because you're chilling in the chat box room. I'd be in there too, of course, but I am currently programming. Okay, so the other people are like, you know, if you're watching the full live stream, this is what happens. This is what live streams are about. But that being said, I want to continue. So this project dungeon is going to become Into the Deep in my development blog. And so all of this is kind of that series. Oh, good. I'm glad you took some rest, my friend. Thank you for coming back and hanging out with us. It means so much to me. It really does. And again, thank you for your support on Ko-Fi, or Coffee. I know that the new month just rolled out, and so I'm sure all the supporters are being charged today. And I wanted to thank you again for being a part of that part of our community. It means a lot. It does. So, thank you, sir. All right. So the next thing that I want to do is... I appreciate that. And Funk, I want to make sure that we can moderate and everything here. I'm also gonna, I know that you're a moderator on our Discord, so I made you a standard moderator of my channel just now, which allows you to delete comments in the chat in real time, as well as allows you to kick or time people out. And so if we get any spammers or anything like that, I know you didn't ask for that service, but you get it now. You've been voluntold, my friend. But yeah, if you don't mind, not that it does happen, but you never know. Sometimes people jump in here and spam or drop links, or they're bots and they're going to drop inappropriate links. It'd be great to have people in here who can... Yeah. Thank you. And now you get a cool little wrench next to your name to let people know you're serious. And actually, Riley, this is a great opportunity here. I trust you completely, explicitly on moderating. So again, this allows you can review, remove chats, hide, or put users in timeout. Now, of course, I also get to see what happens here. But I decided that I wanted to give you, this is a great place for you to practice those moderator skills, as we were talking about. Of course, people who are listening to this right now is like, oh, I don't care at all about that. This isn't a first-person game. That's totally fine. Politics inside of it, politics is a weird word, but culture inside of our Discord is important to us. And if you're watching and haven't joined our Discord, you should do that. Shame on you. No, I'm just kidding. There's lots of great information in there, including, of course, this asset pack. Oh, so great. Anyways, but I trust you guys. If you know exactly what I mean. Remove links, and it's happened before where I've had to kick bots and stuff. Just in case it happens on your watch and you happen to be here, I would super appreciate just automatically doing this. Oh, I believe that 100%. Your actions here do affect the community, and that's, of course, important. But I think getting the opportunity to learn how to be a moderator is really important to the foundation of being a good leader in your life. So no matter where you are in your age, you can always learn to become a better manager, a better people person, and being a moderator, that is kind of all of what that's about. It's about interacting with people and solving their problems. And if you're not part of that community, if you're not taking care of people in that way, then I think you're doing your job wrong. It's in my opinion, it's a basic philosophy. Anyways, let's get into it. Let's get back out of our break and back into the actual game development part of this. Unless behavior is a gross offense on the community, meaning it's contextually very inappropriate, like inappropriate links to websites or links to any website without permission of posting, unless they're a verified member of our community, or you'll have to choose that with discretion. But any link that goes somewhere where it shouldn't, which means leaving our people out of YouTube, people doing self promotions, people otherwise, we give for self promotions, we give a warning. We delete the comment and give them a warning. Everyone deserves an opportunity to change their behavior, because sometimes it's ignorant behavior, which means that you haven't been educated on why it's inappropriate and why we don't do it. So I like to give everyone a chance to address their behavior first, because it's very simple to say, hey, I don't like you doing that. Can you not do that, please? And they go, oh yeah, I didn't think about it. Absolutely. I can do that. And if you don't say that and you're a jerk about it, then we time them out. Or if they do it again, they get a warning. One warning. I'm not a fan of 3 strikes, you're out. I'm a fan of you get told once appropriately, and if you did your job right as a moderator, it should be done appropriately. And if you're not, and then if they need to submit information, I have contact information. If people want to get unbanned, I have a contact, my email on YouTube that you can reach me at. If you have images of you getting banned and it's not, the moderator didn't treat you fairly, then I'll remove it, but otherwise, I trust these people explicitly. So as we move on and there's more live streams, and maybe down the road we have a big significant community, these are going to be my standards no matter when this happens. So use common sense, treat people with respect, and sometimes common sense is learned. It is learned. It's not something that we technically all have. So what I want is for you guys to be able to utilize that and grow from it. Anyways, so I keep saying back to the game development, but that's what we're doing. I'm trying to. I just have to get out my TED Talk every time. Anybody who knows me and knows me well enough in person, I never stop talking. I don't know how. It doesn't even seem like I need to take breaths. A lot of people are like, are you going to breathe? When do I get to talk? You gotta tell me when you want to say something, or I'll fill the silence. All right, I just was looking ahead of what I would like to do. Now that we've taken a small break, thank you guys so much for sticking with me, and I'll put an annotation in the live stream notes, so at the very beginning, I'll let people know in the comments if they want to skip the interlude in the middle they can jump to a specific spot. So what time is it now? It is 11:51 a.m. and in my time. So that timestamp is 2 hours and 6 minutes into our live stream. It's not quite that time yet, but it will be in 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, 2:06. All right, now that we're back from the interlude, let's do the next step. So now that we have our script worked out, and my jump script is working to the way I want it to be, which you stick after you jump if you're still holding the jump key, we want to hold Control, press W to close your game. Now, this is important. I want to add this little bit of information. If you use the Controls key, if you use a Control key for crouch, and the crouch key is Control, and you want to walk forward and you press W, if you are in the preview of your game, not the web version, if you're in the preview, it will close your preview. You remember that. That's the key that we're using to close your preview. So you may be wondering, why does my game keep crashing? What the heck? There's no message. There's nothing going on. That's what's happening, friends. What's happening is you're closing. This happened to me. That's why I'm laughing about it. You hear me chuckling a little bit in my speech. It's because I did this to myself. It took me weeks to figure out why that was happening. An embarrassing amount of time. And so, laugh at my pain. I did this to myself. Don't be me. Don't be me. Do it better. All right. So here we are. And the next thing I want you to do is go to your tile set. We're going to duplicate your tile, and we're going to call it Dungeon Wall Default. So this is the base wall. And if you wanted to, as you add more textures, you're going to need to separate these. It just makes sense. Might as well start that now. So you can say ground tiles, and we can move that in there. And there's going to be quite a few ground tiles, so that's why I wanted to do that now. And we're only going to be using the first wall tile, because I only did one. So dungeon wall, and we'll or wall, sorry, no underscores, dungeon, what am I doing? Wall tiles. So now we can put that into wall tiles. My mustache keeps getting into my face. It's tickling my nose. It's time for a shave. If your mustache tickles your nose, okay? It's time to trim, boys. All right. I was choking on air, and I didn't want you guys to hear me choke to death like you usually do. Trying to cough less in the microphone. All right, so now that we have our wall tile, well, we didn't actually set it. So open it up, double click on it. Sorry. Yeah, for those that are watching in the live stream, if you don't have live comments on, go turn that on. What's really funny about that, you may not know, and I won't. It was a really Riley. That was a super funny comment, because Riley is young enough that he can't grow a mustache yet, or hasn't gotten to that point in his life yet to grow. You know, we all know what it's like to grow facial hair if you can, right? If you're a male and you can grow facial hair, it sometimes takes a while to bloom in full glory, right? It's a practice. It takes many years. And so someone who I know, right? The joke is that because I know this information, saying my mustache just isn't there yet is comedy. That is clever, funny stuff. So Riley, I appreciate that about you. Thank you for making me laugh. That was genuine. Oh man. All right. So what we're gonna do? Yeah. And yeah, you'll be there. We all get there eventually. Woo. Sorry. To me, that was so funny, man. Well timed. So got me good. I'm in stitches. All right, we're gonna use the front face as a tiled map, but now a little bit differently. I gotta let it go. A little bit differently. We want to go down into our well, the rest of our faces. We don't need a back face because that's the bottom. You know? Exactly. Hey, Clayton, welcome back. Boo, hello. Exactly. Dude, I'm gonna trim this thing. It keeps tickling my nose. We don't need the back face, but now we need everything else. Okay. And now we're going to add the dungeon 14 tile into each of the slots. And we don't need the bottom face. Oh no, we do. We need the bottom face. Do we? Which ones do we need? Is it bottom or back? I don't know. Okay. Out of sheer, I don't remember. We're just gonna draw the texture on everything. I'll turn off the bottom face just in case bottom is actually bottom. But if not, then I'll find out here in just a moment. So what we're gonna do now is just drag this onto the map. Do nothing with it. Press preview. Okay. So, aha. We see we have an error. We have two cubes that are just straight up missing. Two planes. Now, I want you to think about this, and this is important because in games like Minecraft and things like this, these are blocks, right? So you could generate your own terrain and duplicate Minecraft. Minecraft was written in JavaScript. They've done more things since this point, of course, but the Java edition still exists and still is being updated today. So it's done in Java. So this is JavaScript, not the same thing, close enough. And with the tools that we have, we can do everything Minecraft does right now today in Gdevelop. Can you, if you know how to program, can you make Minecraft in its entirety in Gdevelop? Yes. Would it be very difficult? Also, yes. But can you? Indeed. You could. You absolutely could. Would it run very well? I also think yes, because there's a Minecraft version that's like a web browser version, like the down graphics and fixed one. I do believe it is entirely possible. And if you're building a game like that and there's these planes, you need to hide them. Hide the faces of your cubes so they're not being drawn. That's extra resources that you don't need to repeat. So if these were connected to something, you would not. Yeah, you need to make your game in chunks with elevation and terrain. And there's a few people working on projects like this in Gdevelop for their own reasons, but the engine is so new that these concepts that are regularly available in places like Unreal and Unity, in terms of packages that you could get from the store or market, there is nothing like that currently available because the community for Gdevelop, even though it's been out since 2008, is very small in retrospect. So, and it's because a lot of people just don't believe it's possible. And I'm here to change your mind about this. So, I'm going to finally be committing myself to finishing my first game, which is going to be Into the Deep. And so, I've got a little bit of work catch up to do to complete some projects for other people. And when that's done, normal map. What do you mean? Not sure. Anyways, so but yeah, generation, chunks, everything like that, completely possible. We've done it already in 2D in our channel. So the terrain just needs an elevation on top of that in block generation. We could add a point. There are points to objects of bottom, middle, and we could do the origin as the bottom, middle, and then spawn based on the bottom, middle. So the top of the other block will be stacked, and that is just what Minecraft does. And so, yeah, we can target our FPS and display it if we wanted to. There's lots of cool features that we can build to make sure our game is running optimized. And as long as you're building it optimized, and with these cool techniques I'm showing you, you'll be able to do it. So let's continue, because we're running out of time here, because I have other things I need to get done. So that means we have an issue. We have one face that's not being drawn, and all the rest of them are, but there were two that weren't working. Very interesting. That's confusing. Well, let's turn this tile on and press play, and okay, so the bottom of it is always disabled, even though I have it on. Why is this? Let me double check what's going on here. These are all checked. I'm not crazy. Everything's checked. We're gonna re-enable everything just to make sure that nothing weird happened. That? Oh. Nope. Let's turn off transparency and see what happens. Oh, okay. Okay, it's a full cube now. And so I was able to put my head inside of the cube, and before we could see the inside of the walls, but when it's a full cube, it no longer draws on the back side of each of the cubes. And now it's transparent on the inside, because there's nothing in it. So now it's just a 3D structure, rather than being broken down into like multiple parts. Like different 2D planes, effectively. So now we have a block, okay? So now, of course, I raised it. We know that it's at ground zero. So if we are considering where our camera is, so I was wrong before. The bottom of our camera is, I think, where our eyes are. And so we're at the bottom of our camera, and that means we're touching the zero axis. So this is why when we had our texture at 0, it was at our eye level. We literally couldn't see it because it was exactly in the middle of our screen. We couldn't look at it in any way because it was just being cut by the same mechanic that happens when I walk into this cube. So, yeah. But the reason why I built this is because we're going to now move it down 16. That is the wrong direction, my friend. -16. And the reason is, now I want to be able to jump on it. We can see I'm getting jump high enough. I'm almost there. We need to up by 8 more, I think. So I need to double the cube. We'll see if I can jump on it. But of course, right now I'm walking through it. What's happening? Well, there's a very handy feature that we can do, which is separate an object. So it works just like the 2D version. And if you're using 3D models, you would do this a little bit differently. If you're using 3D models, you can't separate from the model because it's not seen the same way. There's not the 3D walk works on 3D walkable objects. And so we can make it, if we turn off in our camera the Z feature, where's it at? The Z in our behavior. The stop falling when Z equals 0. If we remove this, okay, I'm gonna fall through the world, but this is important. So I'm gonna fall through the world, okay? So that sucks. We don't want that. Maybe you're making a 3D game and there's more physics in your game. Well, what we need to do, I am unsure if it'll work in a group, so I'm testing something out, but you would do the next step the same way. But I'm going to try this just in case it works. And we're going to say these are collision objects. So if they're a collision object, which means they're something that we would be blocked by, something that would stop our falling, and in this case, we're going to use the ground as the falling layer. And so now we know it's at -17, and that means our camera being at 8 should fall until it touches the floor, if this works. Now, if you're using 3D models, you would create a wall texture, and it would just be the same thing as this, but like a red cube. And every time you need something that blocks a 3D object, like, you just import it as a GBL, because that's the only model type you can use currently in Gdevelop. And then, because it's browser and mobile optimized, you can then create that as a collision and drag it to whatever size you need and shape it over your 3D objects. Because all you need is a cube that stops the player from running into it. That's it. So put your cubes in the right place, and you've got a perfect collision box system. It doesn't use the object's mesh as a collision. It simply uses the cube. So what we need to do is, if this works, I'm going to call collisions. If it doesn't, we have to do it manually. So I'm going to go into our game events, and I'm just going to create a new event group and call it collisions. Inside of collisions, we're going to separate. So we're going to click on the camera, type separate. Separate from platforms. We're going to enable that. We're going to select the collision layer. Oh, cool, it did work. And now, when I fall, you see, I land wherever this is. Now, this is not great because my eyes are collapsing into the floor. And this is why other people use another model, another 2D cube, as the collision body for the player. It's like making a pill collider, but it's a cube collider, a rectangle collider. I don't like doing it this way. This would be great for a more in-depth game, and if you had 3D terrain that was like actual mesh terrain, but I don't do that in this. We're going for a retro style, so just to avoid that, what we can do is leave it all the same, go back to our player, go back to our behaviors, and now set 0 as the platform. Basically, 0 becomes the default place we fall. But we want to add jumping and climbing in our game still, but then have 0 as the permanent spot where we stop. Because in these retro style games, the game's mostly flat. Just objects you can climb onto, if you can at all. So in my game, I want to do that. Into the Deep, I want to do that, but you don't have to. And now I press preview, and now here we are. But see, I am still encountering an error with the collision of this object. And so I think it's because I can't. Actually, I'm not even sure why. I added that to the collision, the actual wall and the ground stone. Okay. And then separate from the platform. And maybe there's another separate as well. Or maybe it's because I'm not jumping high enough. No, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe we'll separate the objects. Well, let's separate the player. Oh, that won't move? Collisions. Collisions won't move. Let's try this as well. We might need both of them. Whoa. Oh, duh. We need to remove the floor from the collisions now. Because I'm not doing the other mode. It's pushing me up. Dang it. Alex, I'm getting tired. I can tell I'm getting tired. And which means that my video content is going to go downhill pretty soon. Because my brain is stopping working. Okay, so in the collisions, I'm just going to add the wall for now. You may add, like, boxes and other things. There we go. Yeah, okay. Now it's working. So, let me make sure that that also works. Is it the platform part, or is it... No. So it's the move away from. Okay. Very good. Very good. So I want to go back into my jump script, and because I'm not taking in that my character height isn't being included in the vertical jump, I need to add my player height, which is also 16, to this number. So it's going to be, well, we can do 16, we can't do math in here. So, 24 plus 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it would be, what, 40? 36, 7, 8, 9, 10, yeah. Oop, oop. I think it's jumping high enough now. That looks better. And now I want the, I'm going to add the sustain a little bit longer. just in case, you know, maybe I'm not holding it down long enough. We're just going to do half a second. But it's not going to continue to jump beyond the max, so that's fine. My acceleration and deacceleration feels fine. I could change the gravity as well, but I just want to make sure that we're all set here. And I need to go back to my settings and just undo. That's the beautiful thing. If you Control Z, whatever screen you're currently in, it'll only Control Z and undo the last thing you did in that space. So if you change something and then change a bunch of data in here, this one will still, like I just showed you, allow you to do this. So now what we're going to do is try to jump on top of it. So the moving away function is not working the way that I expect. Moving away is working, but it's preventing us from landing on top of it. So this would be great for walls, not great for what I want to do. Now, because I want this to be a platform, only the top of it will be registered. Okay, so you know how I said before, if you're using 3D models, you're going to need to figure this part out. Well, it turns out we need it no matter what happens, which I didn't expect. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the wall, and we're going to call this collision. And this is collision group. I'm going to rename this to collision group. This one up. Would you let me do this? Collision group. Okay. I didn't know it was going to be like that. That's fine. I'll do snake. And then we're going to do collision on this one. Going to move it up to the tile set. We're going to go to collisions. And now we're going to go through each face and create a new one. So we're just going to create a new face. This is the only one you're going to have to do. Edit with Piskel. And all I want you to do is first go up here to the top, type new, rename this. Rename this to collision.png. Actually, just collision will be fine. And then what I want you to do is we're going to delete all of this. You can do that very quickly by using the selection tool and deleting. Now go to your fill tool. Actually, we're going to use the rectangle tool. Select a red color, and we're going to build a little cube. Now we're going to take the stroke tool, or press L, hold shift, and drag to each corner to draw an X on the cube. Hit save. And now we have a collision. And we can just paste this into all of these spaces. And we're going to hit apply. So now in the collision, okay, we're not going to add it to the collision group, which seems counterintuitive. But the reason is the collision group actually needs to be platform group. Platform group will be any object where the top is something you can stand on. Be it a 3D object, be it anything, okay? So now that we have the 3D object and we already have the wall, we're going to add our collision, and we're going to set it to the exact position of the last one. So -16. Now, if I was to move this over, okay, it would be at the exact position of the other box. Well, I want to move away from this cube, but I still need to get on top of it. So I want to push ourselves away. Oh, that might not work. I just had a moment here where I realized that it doesn't matter what my Z order is, I'm still going to fall. My character needs to be 32 deep. Let me see something. And let me change my jump, or actually, I can just shrink this cube to 8. But before you guys do anything, don't change anything in your game yet, because I need to see if something is true. Why does that not work? That is a platform, is it not? I told it to be a platform. Maybe we need to now select. Maybe we can't select it that way. And even though it lets us select it, we actually have to select The wall? Separate from the wall. Well, that should work. What is going on here? And if I use the move away, that's a problem. Because if I do move away, right, I can't get on top of it because it's using... Move away uses the 3D element as... Oops. As the... 8? See if I can jump on top of it. I don't think so. Yeah. So even though I'm jumping high enough to get on top of it, what I just realized... So we're using, and I'll explain what's happening here. So technically, anything that's 2D is at the Z depth level. So in 2D, we have, remember, just left and right. Z order is like layers behind it, like pieces of paper. But in this, we have to use, if I use the... Where are we? I lost my train of thought. In the camera. No, in the game. Yeah. In what? Oh, I closed it. I was like, where is the... That's what's happening. All right. Let's move this back. So if we go into the game scene, okay, and we use the move away, this is the 2D function. Even though we're applying it to a 3D object, what happens, right, is because the game editor is in 2D and we don't have a 3D editor yet, this, you see that bottom square that's on the grid? That is the 0 layer. And what's happening is in 2D, these are bonking together, and it's not letting me go on top of it because the 2D script says no. The 2D is saying, you can't get on here. No, you can't have this. So I want to figure out how to make the separation happen with the wall. And my first thought is, well, maybe we can check a collision first. So if the first person is in collision with the collision group, so for now it's just the wall, then do this function. I got to launch from my game scene. Wait, what happened? Oh, oh, guys. This is... Don't put that there. That made no sense. This. And we're going to put this back to the collision group. Oh, Alex. Okay. We're going to wrap this today up here pretty soon after I figure this part out. I am very confused. Why? Now, it might be, actually, because my last idea of why that's not working, because I didn't actually test this before, because I didn't consider that I was going to allow myself to jump, but in this video, I was like, yeah, I want to allow myself to jump. So if I do jump, and I'm in collision with the platform group, then separate it. But at the same time, if the platform group doesn't include the floor, we're going to add the floor back. If I go into the object manager now, this cube, and disable, so the first person camera, and disable this, I wonder if now that I'm in collision with them, can I get on top of it? And the answer is actually yes, but it's not the way I thought it would be. And now I had a big aha moment. Alex's brain just unlocked. I see what's happening. It's using the bottom of the cube as the platform. I did not expect that to be true. And that's, so, big brain aha moment. So depth needs to be negative. So let's do -17, -32. Well, this would need to be -8 now. -8 to be on top. This needs to be -17. This needs to be, it doesn't matter. We're going to put this back to 16 to keep all of our ratios the same. And because, oh, and then I need, so depth of the wall needs to, oh, I can't do negative. Oh, but I can rotate it. Never mind. disregard, disregard. So I got very confused there for a moment, but now I understand what's happening. So the top is not the top. What I thought was the top of my cube was not the top of my cube. They're all faced the wrong direction. It's upside down. So to fix this, this is why before my other things were set to -90, and I think it's on, yeah. No, it needs to be -90, 180. I need to turn it upside down. Let me check. We're going to remove that collision and jump on top of it. Good. Let's change. Let's fix our camera and enable the 3D again. Perfect. And aha, I'm on it. I am on. No, I'm not. Lies. Deceit. I thought this was gonna work. What the heck? I might need that. Remember I was telling you guys before I need that collision body? Maybe if I pick it up now? I am so confused. Depth. 8 is fine. -8. No, let's bring it up to just 0, I guess. Depth of 8 at tier 0. Wait, am I on it? Oh, I am. No, I'm not. Oh, wait. I am on it. This must be why they use a collision body. I understand. Because I've been looking at templates and seeing what other people are doing, and I've been wondering, why is everybody using a collision body for the player camera? And it's because of this. I'm almost certain of it. Because if you jump on this, I'm colliding the location of my camera. The bottom of it is the actual collision layer. So like the Z order, if you will, on the Z depth. And every object I'm standing on, the bottom layer, no matter where it's drawn, is this right here. So we have a couple ways of fixing this. We can either do that collision body and add it to our player, or we add it to our game scene. I'm going to choose our game scene instead. So we're going to add the collision box, right? We're going to make its depth 0. So we can see exact, come on, depth 0. Now we can see where its platform is. It becomes a platform at this level. And then we just have to move it up to the position we want it in. So let's say, for example, on the 8, which is way up here. I can't even jump that high. And that's why I can't get on it. But, oh, and also it's not part of the collision group. So let's fix that and fix this. Okay, so yeah, I am on it because I can jump that high. But we're using the bottom of it. And the reason why you can't see the texture, I think is because of the, I'm not sure actually. We're going to do 4 though. We're just going to keep working on this until we get it right. So now, but we can see something that's happening. The 3D cubes are blotting each other out because the other cube was there, you know? So like if I move this and leave it here, where did my cube go? Oh, he's 0 depth. I changed, jeez, Alex. I was very confused to what was going on. Okay. Ugh. See? Tired. The more tired I get, I'm probably going to have to re-scrap this whole part. Like, this whole part of the video is bunk. And that's fine. And so, okay, depth is 16. We're going to do 8. Then I want to put it at -8. So it's more or less on the Z0. Oh, so -16. Yeah, okay. And there, I think. All right. So that doesn't work. And if I rotate it on the x-axis to 180, what happens here? Same thing. I'm clipping through the top of this platform. But now I'm seeing, though, it is actually working the way it should. So now if I'm pushing against it, it blocks. But then if this is me actually standing on it. It just looks funny. So I'm going to re-enable the depth of this thing now that it's upside down and to 8. And I'm going to lower it to 0. This one needs to be negative 16 because I want to try to jump on them. So this one doesn't work, but this one does. Okay. Why doesn't this one work? Or maybe it does. Oh, it does. Come on. Wait. No. Oh, that's my camera. Okay. I'm trying to figure out, there's a weird collision thing happening, and I'm trying to fix, because my walls, you could just use this for a wall, and that would work. And somebody in here is like, dude, it's clear as day what the issue is. My brain is not solving the issue. And we're going to stop that, flip this 180 instead, put this back to 0. And can I jump on top of this without falling through it? Negative. All right. Let's go back to our script and see if we're in collision with the platform group. Separate from the platform group. Platform group. Wall. Stone and collision. Well, what my plan was to move this to negative 8. Or maybe in this case, like negative 10. Or not negative 10. Negative 6. So that way it's above the block. And if I stand on it, it makes me feel like I'm actually on top of, well, it would if I could actually get on top of it. So we're going to go negative 8 then. See what's going on. Yeah. Aha. I'm on top of the cube. See? Well, no, I'm not. I thought I was. What's happening here? Why are you like this, game? What is this? Why? Now we're back to 0. Okay, so if this is 0, and I go to touch it, now I'm on top of it. Okay, let's see in real time. Can I edit this in real time? Changes. We're gonna move the camera so I can see the editor and the game at the same time. Okay, this is how we get a 3D viewport. This is a fake 3D viewport. Okay, pick your game. Oops. Put it to the other side of your screen. Close your event groups. Not that one. This one. Now we're gonna change some settings. We're gonna try to lower it and update the game. Now look at where we're standing. Okay, so if we want to feel like we're standing on a cube like this, in our game currently, we need to have a cube. And if I did 16, we're going to raise up, we're going to lower on the ground. Oh no, it pushed me off. But it still feels the same. Okay. All right. And if I go to 0 and do this, then what? Does it feel the same? It feels the same. That's good. Okay. So now we have a collision with the platform. Platform is the top part of it. I think it's because the original size is 16 by 16. To fix this, all you would need to do is come in here and set the default, because it's using this as its collision box, but then I'm shrinking it down when I cut the blocks down. So now I have it at its custom size. I'm falling into and touching the bottom of it. And even if I flip this upside down, I don't think it would make any difference. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's always using the bottom of the box. And if I rotate this 90 degrees and launch the game, nothing's going to happen. If I rotate this 180 degrees, we'll just do everything to 180 degrees and update. Nothing changes. So now what we can do, assuming that this is how we're going to handle everything in our game, this is how I'm going to handle it because I'm lazy. And it works. So that's what I said before. If it works, it works. You can, whatever you want to do and stop yourself from having heartache. But now I know that even if this is at a depth of 1, right? And I jump on this, if it'll let me on it. Come on. Come on. Okay, now it's too small. So let's do a, or what happens? Am I on the ground? I am on the ground. This, a depth of 1. 1. Let me on it. You son of a biscuit. Why? Why have you forsaken me? And if I do 0, and then what? Nothing. Nothing. Oh, wait, I'm on it. Okay, so no, I'm not. I'm standing in it. This is very interesting to me. And I'm trying to figure out. Let's try a depth of 1 and see if that actually changes what happens. So if it's a depth of 1 and I stand on it, it won't let me stand on it, guys. But because that's the base layer. So -1? Can I stand on it on -1? Maybe. Let's see this. Let me stand on you. Let me stand on you. No, won't let me stand on it. Okay. So we're going to go back to 16. I have no idea why that's happening. And even if it is at -1, now I can stand on it. It works fine. What in the heck? What's happening? I don't know why. Tell me why. I'm just kidding. I'm not doing that. We're not doing that again. All right. Okay, so now we have the cube. I don't know why it's like this. 16 by 16, just gonna do it this way. Maybe it's because my grid size. I'm like, yeah, we're just gonna do it this way and then immediately change my mind. If this is 8, now what's gonna happen? Because before it didn't let me jump on it. It literally makes 0 difference. Okay. I have no idea. I'm going to be completely honest. I have absolutely no clue why that is like that. So if you know, and after this video, I'm going to go talk to people who might know, so I can tell you in the next video or in my actual edit of the series, what the heck? What the heck? But that's okay. So now what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to move the collisions to their own layer. And we're just going to call it collisions. Okay? Now that we have a collision layer, we're going to move our collisions to the collision layer, and we're going to hide it. Ta-da! The collision layer is hidden, and I can jump on top of objects. So now I can change this guy. Now, the thing that's interesting to me is that with this collision here, because this object should work at 16, but not at 8. And that's what we just... Oh, that's not going to work. Okay, so we're going to have to hide the collision cubes, not this way. Don't listen to any... Just don't do what I do, okay? Don't follow me along when I'm tired. We're not going to get anywhere. We're going to go to the base layer. Because of the 3D, the base layer is the 3D layer. I'd have to go through and change a bunch of stuff to make it so we can include other things, set the camera to the eyes of this position in this layer. To not do that, we're just going to move the collision back into the base layer. We're going to go ahead and just delete the collisions because it doesn't matter now. And that collision, we need to hide inside of our game scene. And we can just do that in the camera manager at the beginning of the scene. We're going to hide the player camera and all collisions. And now it's all the same. See, now this works fine. The cube, wait, yo, it was working fine. Why? Oh, no, and I remember why. Remember where I was just... Alexa. All right. What's happening is the depth is generated. And the issue is that this is how Gdevelop currently handles 3D. And once this is fixed, this will not be an issue. Because what's happening, in my understanding, is that because of the way we're shifting the map down and everything, and the way that models are built are actually, they pull it up and then print it below. So if you have a model, a 3D box, and you flip it, it doesn't matter what direction it is, the bottom of it is the origin, I believe. And if we wanted to change the origin of our cube, can we change it in this mode? I don't think we can. Other 3D objects you can change. Okay, so that might be why. So there's no the origin of this cube is always on the bottom, and in 3D models you can set the origin point differently. And that's just the way that Gdevelop handles it, I'm pretty sure. And so the bottom, because of it's 2D first, the texture is 2D first and it builds it downwards. So the bottom of it is the end of it, which means that's where the collision box is. And so this box isn't working because if I had moved it up, I could fall through. And if we just use some sort of collision box, I have no idea. I'm guesstimating. So we're going to keep this there. And now we're just going to hide the cube, and then it looks like I'm on it. So that's fine. So every time we did this, we would just need to move it up. That's not really a big problem. And we can actually use math in our programming to move it to the right position every time. So, you know, like if we're checking for the collision box changes and stuff like that, we could just build it at a certain point. So for every cube, every platform, we can do it for each object, these objects, build a collision box above it, just like this, and then hide it. All collisions are always hidden. And so that we could generate, we use scripts to make sure that every box, and that is what I'm going to do. So in my game, this is how I'm going to do it, because this, to me, makes sense unless I find out exactly why and how to fix the other issue. For now, this is my solution. Hopefully that works for you. So now, we spent so long jumping on a box, which could have been a crate or anything else. We're now going to take, again, our wall tile, drag it back in. We're going to set its depth this time to 32. And so if we look at it, it printed upwards. I am so confused to how these jump. What? 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 What is this? What is this? Okay. This has to be, this is it. I understand. Everything, when I said before, guys, this is why people use collision bodies. This is why they use a collision body for the camera. This is why. You could not spawn crates on the top as long as you have a collision body and you account that that person's going to clip through the ground X amount of squares, because the camera's, this wouldn't happen in the camera's collision for some reason is in the middle of the cube, not on the feet, and which is just bizarre to me. So that makes me wonder. That means, mechanically speaking, I'm digesting this like in real time. Mechanically speaking, I actually think what's happening is if we say the depth of it is 16, it prints 8 this way and 8 this way. That is the only way I can imagine from the origin of the cube, which is the middle. So it says go out this amount of cubes. Now print up half of that, print down the other half. And so they're printing a wall. And that's why our cube, it feels like the collision is in the middle of the box. That's my guesstimation. And that's big brain guesstimation. I'm telling you, I'm pretty sure this is why. If that is true, then that tells us a lot about what's going on here. So if I go 64, now the middle of it's going to be way up here. There's no way for me to even get that high. So I can't jump on this wall. If what I just said is true. So we're going to minus it even, 16, so it's touching the floor, which actually is negative 17. So I want it to be inside the floor a little bit. And then we're going to build it upwards. And I can't jump in this because the wall is too dang high. But if I jumped... Yeah, no, there's just no way. But if I was on another box above this, I could probably jump on top of the wall. That's totally fine. I don't want to jump on the walls. So now, to make a wall, you just stretch it. That's it. You have a wall. You can duplicate it holding Control, put it at the position you want it at. We're going to rotate it, and then just move it into place. We're going to copy this again, do the same thing, and now we have a wall. So what I want you guys to do in between this video and the next one, I want you to build yourselves, using the sprites, your own little dungeon. Use these sprites to build the dungeon. and build a cool format. Share it with me on our Discord server, because I'm gonna do the same thing. And in the next video, I'm gonna start adding the dungeon polish, adding in more objects, and each time I do a video, I'll update our asset pack so that you guys can use some of my assets in the process. Thank you guys so much for watching the video and hanging out today. I want to thank everybody for the time and for the commitment of building games. I look forward to seeing whatever you make, no matter how simple or complex it is. I hope that you found this video valuable, and if you did, can you like and subscribe? It helps a lot. And definitely, if neither of those things are interesting to you, drop a heart in the comment section at the very least. It tells the YouTube algorithm that, you know, something's going on. And I'm trying to teach as many people as possible, so help me teach more folks. Yeah? Thank you guys so much. And until next time, remember, happy game making. And I'll see you in the next video.